Marcus Chen stepped off the transport ship onto the crystalline platform of Zephyria Prime, his boots making soft clicking sounds against the alien material. The air tasted different here, metallic with hints of ozone that made his nose twitch. Around him, beings from dozens of species moved through the massive spaceport with practiced efficiency. Tall, blue-skinned Valorians glided past on their 6 legs, while small, furry Kethans scurried between the larger creatures, their whiskers twitching as they conducted business. The human embassy had sent Marcus here as a cultural attaché, though he suspected his real job was simpler: don't embarrass the human race. Earth had only joined the Galactic Federation 5 years ago, and humans were still considered the newest, least advanced species in the Alliance. Most aliens viewed them as barely civilized primitives who had stumbled into space travel through sheer luck. Marcus adjusted his simple gray uniform and checked the translation device clipped to his collar. The small machine would convert his words into the common galactic language and translate incoming speech back to English. It was standard issue for all human diplomats, though he noticed that most other species didn't need such devices. Their natural telepathic or advanced vocal abilities made communication effortless. "Excuse me, human," a voice said behind him. Marcus turned to see a Valerian official approaching. The alien's blue skin shimmered with an inner light, and his 4 eyes regarded Marcus with what might have been curiosity or contempt. It was hard to tell with Valerian expressions. "Yes, sir?" Marcus replied, the translator humming softly as it converted his words. "I am Inspector Thane of the Zephyria Security Council. Your credentials were flagged during processing. There appears to be an irregularity." Marcus frowned. He had triple-checked all his paperwork before leaving Earth. What kind of irregularity? Thane's upper pair of eyes narrowed while his lower pair continued scanning a holographic display that materialized from his wrist device. "Your genetic markers show anomalous readings. Specifically, there are traces of ancient Zephyrian royal lineage in your DNA profile." "That's impossible," Marcus said. "Humans have never been to this system before first contact 5 years ago. Nevertheless, the scanners do not lie. You will need to submit to additional testing before being allowed planetside." Thane gestured toward a side corridor marked with symbols that Marcus's translator rendered as special processing. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. This was exactly the kind of complication the embassy had warned him to avoid. If he caused an incident on his first assignment, his diplomatic career would be over before it started. "Of course, Inspector. I'm happy to cooperate." The special processing area was a sterile white room filled with humming machines that Marcus couldn't begin to identify. A KEF technician, barely reaching Marcus's waist, directed him to stand in the center of a circular platform. Sensors emerged from the walls and began scanning him with beams of colored light. "Curious," the Keth muttered, his whiskers twitching rapidly. "Very curious indeed." "What is it?" Inspector Thane demanded. The technician manipulated several holographic controls, and a complex genetic map appeared in the air above them. "The human's DNA contains specific markers that match the ancient Zephyrian royal bloodline. But, more than that, there are active genetic sequences that should have been dormant for over 10,000 years. Marcus stared at the swirling genetic display. He could see sections highlighted in gold that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. "What does that mean?" "It means," a new voice said from the doorway, "that you are not who you think you are, young human." The speaker was unlike any being Marcus had encountered. Tall and ethereal, with skin that seemed to be made of living starlight, the figure moved with grace that suggested immense age and wisdom. Both Inspector Thane and the Keth technician immediately bowed deeply. "Oracle Vax," Thane whispered. "We did not expect your presence." "The awakening of a royal bloodline cannot go unnoticed," Vex replied, approaching Marcus with measured steps. "Especially when that bloodline belongs to the lost prince of Zephyria." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm from Earth. My parents were Robert and Maria Chun from San Francisco. I have birth certificates, school records." Oracle Vex raised a hand that sparkled with inner light. "Peace, young one. Your human life is real and valid. But it is not the whole truth. The oracle turned to the genetic display and pointed to the pulsing golden sections. These markers indicate that you are the descendant of Prince Kalen, who disappeared during the Great War 10 millennia ago.
The Lost Prince is just a legend, Inspector Thane protested, though his voice lacked conviction. Legends often contain more truth than history books, Vex replied.
Prince Kalen was not killed in the war as commonly believed. He escaped to a distant world to protect the royal bloodline from those who would destroy it. That world was called Earth.
Marcus's mind reeled.
Everything he thought he knew about himself, about humanity, was crumbling around him.
But humans evolved on Earth.
We have fossil records, evolutionary history, which show human development accelerating impossibly fast in the last 50,000 years, Vex interrupted gently.
Your species' rapid advancement was guided by Zephyrian genetic influence.
Prince Kalen married into the local population and his descendants spread across your world, though the royal genes remained dormant until now. The oracle approached Marcus and held up a small, crystalline device. This will awaken your true heritage, but, once activated, you cannot return to being simply human. The choice is yours. Marcus stared at the crystal. Part of him wanted to refuse, to return to his simple life as a cultural attaché. But, another part, a part he was only now becoming aware of, yearned for something greater.
What exactly would I become?
The rightful heir to the throne of Zephyria Prime, Vex said simply.
The one prophesied to unite the scattered royal bloodlines and restore the ancient kingdom. Inspector Thane made a choking sound.
But, the Council of Worlds has governed this system for thousands of years. The monarchy was abolished after the war. The monarchy was hidden, not abolished, Vex corrected.
The council exists only because there was no royal heir to claim the throne. But, now.
The oracle looked directly at Marcus. The bloodline has awakened. Marcus felt a strange tingling in his left hand. Looking down, he saw a faint pattern beginning to glow beneath his skin, intricate lines that formed the shape of a stylized star surrounded by 3 interlocking circles. The mark grew brighter as he watched, casting a soft golden light that seemed to respond to his heartbeat. The royal seal, the Keth technician breathed.
It's actually manifesting.
The glowing mark on Marcus's hand pulsed once, brightly, and, suddenly, the room filled with an alarm sound. Inspector Thane's communication device activated automatically, projecting a holographic message into the center of the room. All security forces to the spaceport immediately, the message declared.
The human visitor has been identified as a potential threat to planetary security. Detain at all costs.
Marcus looked up to see Inspector Thane's expression had changed from confusion to grim determination. I'm sorry, human, but I have my orders.
Oracle Vex, please step away from the prisoner.
I am afraid I cannot do that, Vex replied calmly.
You do not yet understand what you are dealing with.
Thane drew a sleek energy weapon from his belt.
The council has made their decision. This human's claims to royal heritage are clearly fabricated. He will be detained pending full investigation.
Look at his hand, you fool, the Keth technician squeaked.
The royal seal cannot be fabricated. It responds only to true royal blood.
Thane glanced at Marcus's glowing hand and hesitated.
Genetic manipulation could produce similar effects.
Not this, Vex said firmly.
Watch.
The oracle nodded toward Marcus, who instinctively raised his marked hand. The golden light intensified, and, suddenly, every piece of technology in the room began to hum in harmony. The scanning equipment, Thane's weapon, even the lights overhead all synchronized to the rhythm of the glowing seal. The royal bloodline has dominion over all Zephyrian technology, Vex explained as Thane stared in shock at his weapon, which had begun glowing with the same golden light as Marcus's hand. It is hardwired into every circuit, every power source, every system we have built for the past 10,000 years. Marcus felt something awakening inside him, not just knowledge, but understanding.
He could sense every technological device within 100 meters, feel their energy signatures like distant heartbeats.
The sensation was overwhelming and exhilarating at the same time. This is impossible, Thane muttered, but his voice carried less conviction than before. The impossible has a way of becoming inevitable, Vex observed. Now, Inspector, I suggest you contact the council and inform them that the lost prince has returned. Before Thane could respond, the door burst open and 6 armed security guards rushed in, their weapons trained on Marcus. Drop your weapons and surrender immediately, their leader barked. Marcus raised both hands, the seal on his left hand blazing like a small sun. The guards' weapons immediately stopped functioning, their energy cells draining harmlessly into the air. The lead guard pressed his trigger repeatedly, producing nothing but soft clicking sounds. I don't want any trouble, Marcus said, his voice carrying a strange new authority that surprised even him. I just want to understand what's happening to me. What's happening, Oracle Vex said, moving to stand beside Marcus, is that the true heir to Zephyria has awakened. And there are those who will do anything to prevent his rightful claim. The guards exchanged nervous glances, their useless weapons hanging limply in their hands. Inspector Thane's communication device crackled to life again, this time with a different voice, older, more commanding. This is Council Prime Zarek. All units are to stand down immediately. Bring the human to the council chambers under full escort. And, Inspector Thane, treat him with the respect due to visiting royalty. Thane's 4 eyes widened. Prime Zarek knows? The council has always known this day would come, Vex replied. They simply hoped it would not be in their lifetime. As they prepared to leave the processing center, Marcus caught sight of his reflection in one of the scanning screens. The glowing mark on his hand was clearly visible, but, more than that, something in his posture and expression had changed. He looked like someone who belonged here, someone who had every right to walk among these alien dignitaries. The journey through the spaceport to the government district was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. Word of his presence had spread somehow, and aliens from dozens of species lined the corridors to catch a glimpse of him. Some bowed as he passed, while others whispered among themselves in languages his translator couldn't process. How do they all know? Marcus asked Oracle Vex as they walked. The royal bloodline awakening sends ripples through the psychic field that connects all advanced civilizations, Vex explained. Every telepathic species in this system felt it the moment your seal manifested. News travels fast when it concerns the return of a lost king. The council chambers were located in a massive crystalline structure that rose from the planet's surface like a frozen waterfall. As their transport approached, Marcus could see hundreds of ships arriving from across the system. Representatives from every member species were converging on Zephyria Prime. They're all coming because of me? Marcus asked. Your awakening changes everything, Vex replied. The political balance that has existed for 10,000 years is about to shift dramatically. Inspector Thane, who had been silent during the journey, finally spoke up. Prime Zarek will want to verify your claims before any formal recognition. The council has protocols for such situations. And, what if I don't want to be a prince or a king? Marcus asked. What if I just want to go home to Earth and pretend none of this happened? Oracle Vex turned to look at him with eyes that held the wisdom of millennia. Look at your hand, young prince. The seal has awakened. It will never fade now, and neither will the responsibilities that come with it. But, remember, with great power comes the opportunity to do great good. As their transport settled onto the landing platform of the council building, Marcus saw that they were surrounded by hundreds of armed guards. Not threatening, but definitely prepared for trouble. The political implications of his presence were clearly more complex than he had realized. The moment he stepped out of the transport, a hush fell over the assembled crowd. His glowing hand was clearly visible in the dim light of Zephyria's twin suns, and the sight sent ripples of reaction through the watching aliens. Some dropped to one knee, while others raised their weapons in what he hoped were salutes of respect rather than preparation for attack. Welcome to the real beginning of your story, Prince Marcus, Oracle Vex said quietly as they approached the massive doors of the council chambers. What happens next will determine the fate of not just Zephyria, but, potentially the entire galaxy. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped forward, the mark on his hand pulsing steadily with golden light. Behind those doors waited answers to questions he was only beginning to understand, but also challenges that would test everything he thought he knew about himself and his place in the universe. The massive doors began to open, revealing a chamber filled with beings from across the galaxy, all turning to look at the human who claimed to be their lost prince. Marcus straightened his shoulders and walked forward, knowing that whatever happened next, there was no going back to the simple life he had known just hours before. The council chambers stretched before Marcus like a cathedral made of living crystal. Representatives from 43 different species sat in tiered galleries that rose toward a domed ceiling displaying real-time images of the stars above. At the center of the vast space, 7 beings sat at a curved table, the Council Prime, the governing body of the Zephyrus system for the past 10 millennia. Marcus walked down the central aisle, his footsteps echoing in the absolute silence. The mark on his hand continued to pulse with golden light, and he noticed that many of the technological devices throughout the chamber had begun to resonate with the same rhythm. Display screens flickered in sync with his heartbeat, and even the artificial gravity seemed to flutter slightly with each step he took. Council Prime Zarak rose from the central chair as Marcus approached. The being was tall and imposing, with silver skin that reflected the chamber's lights and eyes that held the cold intelligence of a master politician. "Human Marcus Cheneverth," Zarak intoned, his voice carrying clearly throughout the massive space without amplification, "you stand before this council claiming royal heritage. These are serious allegations with far-reaching consequences." "I'm not claiming anything," Marcus replied, surprised by how steady his own voice sounded. "I came here as a cultural attaché. Everything that's happened since I arrived has been as much a surprise to me as it has been to everyone else." A ripple of whispers passed through the gallery. Many of the assembled aliens had never heard a human speak before, and Marcus's words were being translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. Counselor Vex, a different being from Oracle Vex but clearly of the same species, leaned forward. "The genetic scans confirmed the presence of royal markers in your DNA. But genetic heritage alone does not make one fit to rule." "With respect, Counselor," Oracle Vex interjected from where she stood near the chamber entrance, "the manifestation of the royal seal suggests otherwise. The ancient magic that protects our technology recognizes him as legitimate." Council Prime Zarak's expression remained neutral. "Magic is simply science we do not yet understand. There could be other explanations for these phenomena." "Then, test him," a new voice called from the gallery. Marcus looked up to see a being he didn't recognize, humanoid but with skin that seemed to be made of flowing metal. If he truly carries the bloodline of Prince Kalen, he should be able to demonstrate the traditional royal abilities. Murmurs of agreement echoed throughout the chamber. Marcus felt a growing sense of unease. What kind of abilities? Council Prime Zarak studied him carefully. The royal bloodline of Zephyria was enhanced through ancient processes to interface directly with our technology. A true heir should be able to control any device simply through will and proximity. "I already saw him disable our weapons," Inspector Thane spoke up from the security detail. "And the scanning equipment responded to his presence." "Parlor tricks," scoffed Counselor Thax, a squat being with multiple tentacles instead of arms. "Any sufficiently advanced technology could produce similar effects." Marcus felt a flare of irritation at the dismissive tone. The mark on his hand blazed brighter, and, suddenly, every light in the chamber dimmed except for those directly above him. A collective gasp echoed from the gallery. "Interesting," Council Prime Zarak observed. "But, controlling lights is still within the realm of technological manipulation. The true test of royal heritage requires something more significant." The Prime Counselor gestured, and a section of the floor before Marcus began to rise, forming a pedestal. Atop the pedestal materialized an object that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was a spear, but unlike any weapon he had ever seen. The shaft appeared to be made of crystallized starlight, while the blade was forged from metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "This is the Spear of Kalen," Zarak announced. "It has remained here in the council chambers since the lost prince disappeared 10,000 years ago. Legend says that only one of true royal blood can wield it." Marcus approached the pedestal slowly. Every instinct told him not to touch the weapon, but something deeper, something that felt like genetic memory, urged him forward. The closer he got, the brighter the mark on his hand became. "Many have tried to claim the spear over the centuries," Counselor Vex noted. "All have failed.
Most suffered severe injury from the attempt.
Marcus reached out hesitantly, his fingers hovering inches from the weapon's shaft. He could feel energy radiating from it, similar to but far more intense than what he sensed from other technology.
This wasn't just a tool, it was alive in some fundamental way.
The moment his fingers made contact with the spear, the chamber exploded with light. The weapon's crystalline shaft blazed like a captured star, while the dark blade began to glow with inner fire. But, more than that, Marcus felt a connection forming not just with the weapon, but with every piece of Zephyrian technology in the system. Through the spear's interface, he could suddenly sense the massive computer networks that ran the planet's infrastructure. He felt the orbital defense platforms that protected the system from invasion. Most overwhelming of all, he became aware of the thousands of ships belonging to hundreds of species that were converging on Zephyria Prime.
Impossible, Counselor Thex breathed.
The spear hasn't responded to anyone in over 3,000 years. Marcus lifted the weapon from its pedestal, surprised by how perfectly balanced it felt in his hands. The blade hummed with contained energy, while the shaft seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Through the connection, he could sense every being in the chamber, their emotional states, even their basic thoughts. The Council acknowledges your genetic heritage, Prime Counselor Zarek said carefully, but heritage alone does not qualify one to rule. The monarchy was dissolved for good reason. The last royal dynasty nearly destroyed this system through their wars of succession. I never asked to rule anything, Marcus replied, though he was becoming aware that the choice might no longer be his to make. Through the spear's connection to the planetary networks, he could sense massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The news of his awakening was spreading far beyond the Zephyria system. Oracle Vex stepped forward. Prime Counselor, with respect, the situation may be beyond our control. The Royal Awakening has triggered response protocols in several neighboring systems. Old allies and old enemies are mobilizing.
What do you mean?
Marcus asked, though part of him was already beginning to understand through the flood of information now available to his enhanced consciousness. The Valdoran Empire has declared the awakening of a royal bloodline a threat to galactic stability, Vex explained. Their fleets are already moving toward our borders. Similarly, the Keth Coalition sees an opportunity to reclaim territories lost in the ancient wars.
Prime Counselor Zarek's silver skin seemed to pale. How many ships?
Over 300 Valdoran dreadnoughts are 6 hours from the system perimeter, Oracle Vex replied. The Keths are mobilizing their entire battle fleet, nearly 500 vessels. Marcus felt the weight of the spear in his hands and the weight of responsibility on his shoulders.
They're coming because of me.
They're coming because your awakening has destabilized the balance of power that has kept the galaxy relatively peaceful for the past 5 millennia, Zarek replied bluntly.
The question is, what do you intend to do about it?
Through the spear's connection, Marcus could sense the orbital defense platforms around Zephyria Prime. They were formidable but designed to repel pirates and raiders, not full-scale military invasions.
Against 800 enemy warships, they would last perhaps an hour.
The Valdorans and Keth have been preparing for this day for centuries, Counselor Vex added grimly. They know that a true royal heir could potentially unite the scattered kingdoms and challenge their expanded territories.
What scattered kingdoms? Marcus asked.
17 systems still maintain sleeper protocols that activate upon royal awakening, Oracle Vex explained.
Their populations have genetic modifications that make them naturally loyal to the royal bloodline. If you choose to claim your throne, those systems would likely declare for you immediately. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine.
You're talking about civil war on a galactic scale.
We're talking about the restoration of the natural order, a new voice declared.
Marcus turned to see a delegation entering the chamber, beings he didn't recognize but whose intent felt familiar through his enhanced senses. They moved with military precision, and each carried weapons that resonated with the same energy signature as his spear. I am General Thora of the Axiom Guard, their leader announced. The being was humanoid but clearly not human, with skin that appeared to be made of living armor and eyes that glowed with inner fire. We have waited 10,000 years for your awakening, Your Majesty. I'm not a majesty, Marcus protested. I'm a diplomatic attaché from Earth. General Thora dropped to one knee, and her entire delegation followed suit. "You are Prince Marcus, heir to the throne of Zephyria and rightful ruler of the 17 kingdoms.
We have come to escort you to safety before the enemy fleets arrive." "Safety where?" Prime Counselor Zarek demanded. "This is Zephyrian space.
"If anyone should be providing security, the Council has done an admirable job maintaining order," Thora interrupted, rising to her feet. "But you are not equipped to handle a full-scale invasion.
The Axiom Guard has been preparing for this contingency for millennia."
Marcus could sense through the spear that Thora was telling the truth. The orbital platforms were already beginning to register the approach of the enemy fleets. He could feel the fear and uncertainty of the millions of beings throughout the system who were just beginning to realize that their peaceful existence was about to be shattered.
"What happens if I refuse?" Marcus asked. "What if I just leave? Go back to Earth and pretend none of this happened?" "The spear will not let you," Oracle Vex said sadly. "It has bonded with you now.
Attempt to leave this system and you will die, as will everyone who tries to protect you." Marcus stared at the weapon in his hands. The beautiful crystalline shaft that had seemed so appealing moments before now felt like a chain binding him to a destiny he had never chosen.
"And if I stay and claim this throne?"
"Then, you lead 17 systems against the greatest military powers in the galaxy," General Thora replied.
"It will be the bloodiest war in recorded history. Billions will die. But it's also the only chance for lasting peace," Counselor Vex added quietly.
"The Valdorans and Keth will never stop expanding. They view other species as resources to be consumed.
A united kingdom under royal leadership might be strong enough to contain them."
Marcus closed his eyes and tried to process the impossible choice before him. Through the spear, he could sense the emotional states of everyone in the chamber. Fear, hope, desperation, and determination swirled together in a complex tapestry of expectation. When he opened his eyes, he found himself looking directly at Prime Counselor Zarek.
"If I do this, if I claim the throne and fight this war, will you and the Council support me?" Zarek was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing the political implications. Finally, he nodded slowly.
"The Council of Zephyria will recognize your claim and provide whatever assistance we can." "Then, I guess I'm not a cultural attaché anymore," Marcus said, lifting the spear higher. The weapon blazed with light that filled the entire chamber, and, through its connection, he sent a pulse of energy to every Zephyrian system in the galaxy. The effect was immediate. Display screens throughout the chamber activated, showing feeds from across 17 different star systems. On world after world, beings of dozens of species looked up at the sky as orbital transmitters carried the message of royal awakening directly to their enhanced minds.
"The Lost Prince has returned," Oracle Vex announced formally.
"Long live the king." The phrase was taken up by voices throughout the chamber, then spread beyond as the declaration was transmitted across space. But, even as the words echoed around him, Marcus could see the tactical display showing enemy fleets adjusting their courses, accelerating toward inevitable confrontation. General Thora stepped forward.
"Your Majesty, we must leave immediately.
The first Valdoran scouts will reach the outer system in 4 hours." Marcus looked around the chamber one final time, at the hundreds of beings who were now looking to him for salvation they had no right to expect from a human who had never wanted to be anything more than a minor diplomat. "Then, let's go save a kingdom," he said, and followed General Thora toward whatever destiny awaited beyond the chamber doors. The Axiom Guard ship was unlike anything Marcus had ever imagined. From the outside, it appeared to be a sleek vessel maybe 300 meters long. Inside, however, the space seemed to fold in on itself, creating rooms and corridors that defied normal geometry. General Thora led him through passages that curved upward but somehow ended up on the same level, past chambers that looked small from the doorway but opened into vast training halls.
"Dimensional folding technology," Thora explained when she noticed his confusion.
The royal bloodline developed it during the height of the Old Kingdom. Most of the science was lost when Prince Kalen disappeared. Marcus gripped the spear of Kalen tighter as they walked. The weapon had not left his hand since he first touched it, and he was beginning to understand why. Through its connection to Zephyrian technology, he could sense every system on the ship, feel the strain on the dimensional generators, even perceive the emotional states of the crew members they passed in the corridors.
"How many people know about the Axiom Guard?" he asked.
"We exist in the spaces between official records," Thora replied. "For 10,000 years, we have maintained the royal fleet, preserved the ancient technologies, and waited. Each generation born to the Guard carries genetic modifications that ensure loyalty to the true king." They entered what Thora called the command center, though it looked more like a temple than a bridge. Crystalline pillars rose from the floor, each one pulsing with the same golden light as Marcus's royal seal. At the center of the room stood a throne carved from a single massive crystal, its faceted surface reflecting light in patterns that seemed to move with their own intelligence. "The throne of command," Thora announced. "From here, you can interface directly with every ship in the royal fleet, coordinate military movements across multiple star systems, and access the deep memory banks that contain the strategic knowledge of 10,000 years. Marcus approached the throne cautiously. Even with the spear's enhancement of his abilities, he could sense that this was technology far beyond anything he had experienced.
"What happens if I sit down?"
"You become what you were born to be," Oracle Vex said from behind them. Marcus turned to see that she had followed them aboard, along with Inspector Thane and several other officials from the council chambers.
"The throne will connect you to every loyal mind in the 17 kingdoms.
You will feel their hopes, their fears, their absolute devotion to your bloodline."
"That sounds overwhelming."
"It is," Thora admitted. "But it is also the only way to coordinate a defense against the forces now moving against us." Through the ship's communication systems, Marcus could hear reports streaming in from across the galaxy.
Valdoran fleets had crossed into 3 different star systems, their massive dreadnoughts destroying anything that tried to resist their advance.
The Keth coalition was moving more cautiously but, with even greater numbers, their bioships adapting and evolving even as they traveled through space.
"How long do we have?" Marcus asked.
"The first Valdoran scouts will reach the Zephyria system in 3 hours, Thora replied.
"Their main battle fleet is 6 hours behind them.
If we're going to mount any kind of defense, you need to take the throne now."
Marcus looked around the command center.
Through the crystalline walls, he could see other ships beginning to materialize around them, vessels that had been hidden in fold space for millennia, waiting for this moment. Each ship that appeared caused the chamber's crystals to pulse brighter, as if responding to the presence of the growing fleet.
"How many ships do we have?" he asked.
"The Axiom Guard maintains a fleet of 50 vessels, Thora replied.
"But, once you take the throne, the sleeper fleets in the 17 kingdoms will activate. Conservative estimates suggest 300 ships total, though many are older designs. Against 800 enemy vessels. The numbers are not favorable," Thora admitted.
"But, our ships carry technology that the enemy has never encountered.
Dimensional fold drives, quantum entanglement communications, weapons that can strike across multiple realities simultaneously." Marcus studied the throne.
Its crystal surface seemed to beckon to him, promising power and knowledge beyond imagination. But he could also sense something else through the spear's connection, a vast network of minds that would become linked to his own the moment he accepted the crown.
"Will I still be me?" he asked quietly.
Oracle Vex stepped forward. "The throne amplifies rather than changes. You will become more yourself than you have ever been, with access to the collective wisdom of every king who came before you."
"And if we lose this war?"
"Then, the galaxy falls under the dominion of species that view other life forms as resources to be consumed," Thora replied grimly. "The Valdorans alone have strip-mined 14 inhabited worlds in the past century. The Keths are worse, they alter the genetic structure of conquered populations to create living tools." Through the ship's sensors, Marcus could feel the distress signals beginning to emerge from the outer systems as the first enemy scouts made contact with civilian populations. Men, women, and children of dozens of species were crying out for protection that might never come. He walked to the throne and placed his hand on its crystal surface. Immediately, information began flooding his consciousness: star charts, fleet movements, the names and faces of millions of beings whose lives now depended on decisions he was about to make. "Your Majesty," Inspector Thane spoke up hesitantly. "Before you fully commit to this course, you should know that taking the throne will make you a target for every ambitious power in the galaxy. Even if you survive this war,
there will always be another.
Marcus turned to look at the Valerian security officer who had become an unlikely ally.
Are you trying to talk me out of it?
I'm trying to make sure you understand the full scope of what you're accepting, Thane replied. My duty was to protect the peace of Zephyria Prime. That peace is about to be shattered regardless of what choice you make.
But, if you take that throne, it might never return. And, if I don't take it?
Then, we all die in the next few hours, General Thora stated flatly.
The enemy fleets are not coming to negotiate.
Marcus closed his eyes and reached out through the spear's connection, touching the consciousness of every being in the immediate area.
He felt Thora's fierce loyalty and determination to see the kingdom restored. Oracle Vex radiated ancient wisdom and a deep sadness for the war that was about to consume countless innocent lives.
Inspector Thane carried a heavy sense of duty mixed with fear for his family back on Zephyria Prime. But, beyond them, through the ship's communication networks, he could sense something else, the collective hope of beings across 17 star systems who had waited 10,000 years for this moment. They didn't see him as Marcus Chen from Earth. To them, he was the fulfillment of prophecies passed down through generations, the return of justice and protection to a galaxy that had grown dark under the expansion of aggressive empires.
All right, Marcus said, turning back to the throne. Let's see what 10,000 years of genetic engineering actually accomplished. He sat down.
The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Marcus felt his consciousness expand beyond the boundaries of his individual mind, connecting with networks of loyal followers across space and time. He could suddenly perceive strategic situations on 17 different worlds, feel the emotional states of millions of beings, and access tactical knowledge that had been accumulated over millennia. Through the throne's connection, he became aware of the true scope of the approaching threat. The Valdoran Empire wasn't just sending raiders, they were mobilizing their entire military apparatus for a war of conquest that would either destroy the royal bloodline forever or be destroyed by it. The Keth Coalition was equally committed, viewing the Royal Awakening as an existential threat to their expansion plans. But, he also became aware of resources he hadn't known existed. The 17 kingdoms had been preparing for this day in ways that went far beyond maintaining hidden fleets. Advanced manufacturing facilities had been constructed in fold space, ready to produce weapons and ships using technologies that predated the current galactic civilization. Sleeper agents had been placed in positions throughout the galaxy, waiting for activation codes that only the royal mind could provide. Status report, Marcus commanded, his voice carrying new authority that resonated through the throne's amplification systems. Sleeper fleet activation is proceeding normally, reported a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere.
Estimated deployment time, 2 hours and 37 minutes. Enemy fleet positions?
Valdoran scouts have made contact with outer system defenses.
3 orbital platforms destroyed. Main battle fleet ETA, 4 hours, 16 minutes. Keth bioships are taking a more circuitous route, estimated arrival in 7 hours.
Marcus could see it all now through the tactical displays that materialized in the air around the throne. The enemy had overwhelming numerical superiority, but they were approaching the battle with assumptions based on 10,000 years of galactic history. They expected to face the same types of weapons and strategies that had been used in every conflict since the fall of the Old Kingdom. They had no idea what technologies the royal bloodline had preserved in secret. General Thora, Marcus said, his enhanced consciousness allowing him to speak to her directly despite her being on a different deck of the ship. Initiate Protocol 7. Even through her loyalty conditioning, Marcus could feel Thora's surprise. Your Majesty, Protocol 7 has never been tested in actual combat conditions. It was designed specifically for this scenario, Marcus replied, accessing memories that belonged to kings who had died millennia before his birth. The enemy is expecting to fight ships and weapons. They're not prepared to fight space itself. Through the throne's connection, Marcus began activating systems that had remained dormant since Prince Kaelin's disappearance. Across the 17 kingdoms, massive installations that had been disguised as mining operations or research facilities revealed their true purpose. Reality anchors emerged from fold space, devices capable of manipulating the fundamental structure of spacetime itself. The war that was about to begin would not be fought according to any rules the galaxy had seen before. All ships, assume battle formation, Marcus commanded, his voice carried instantly to every vessel in the awakening royal fleet.
Prepare to demonstrate why the royal bloodline was feared across the galaxy.
On the tactical displays, he watched as sleeper ships began emerging from fold space around Zephyria Prime. Each vessel that materialized sent ripples through the dimensional fabric of space, announcing to any observer that this would not be a conventional battle. The enemy fleets were still approaching in standard formation, confident in their numerical advantage.
Within hours, they would discover that mathematics became irrelevant when reality itself could be weaponized.
Marcus gripped the spear of Kalen tighter and, prepared to become the king his bloodline had always intended him to be, even if that meant unleashing technologies that could reshape the galaxy forever. The first Valdoran scout ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyria system like predators testing the water before a full assault. Marcus watched their approach through the throne's tactical display, feeling the confidence of their commanders through intercepted communications. They expected to find standard orbital defenses and, maybe a few dozen patrol vessels. Instead, they encountered something that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for 10,000 years. Dimensional anchor deployment complete, reported Commander Kex, the tactical officer aboard Marcus's flagship. The being was another species Marcus hadn't encountered before, tall and willowy with skin that seemed to be made of living metal. Reality stabilizers are active throughout the system. Marcus could feel the anchors through the throne's connection, massive installations that had emerged from fold space around every major planet and moon in the system. To the approaching scouts, they would appear as simple space stations, but Marcus knew their true purpose. They were reality manipulators, capable of altering the fundamental laws of physics within their operational range.
Valdoran lead scout is transmitting surrender demands, another officer reported. Standard conquest protocol.
Through the captured communications, Marcus listened to the enemy commander's message, "Attention Zephyria system defenders.
You are ordered to surrender immediately and submit to Valdoran authority. Resistance is futile. Your defense platforms are obsolete and your fleet is insufficient. You have 10 minutes to comply."
Marcus stood from the throne, the spear of Kalen blazing with golden light in his hand. Around him, the command center's crystalline structures resonated with power as the royal fleet prepared for battle. Through the dimensional fold drives, he could sense ships materializing throughout the system, vessels that had waited 10 millennia for this moment.
Open a response channel, Marcus commanded. Channel open, Your Majesty.
Marcus's voice carried across space with the authority of ancient kings.
This is Marcus, rightful heir to the throne of Zephyria and sovereign of the 17 kingdoms. You have entered royal space without permission and threatened the lives of innocent beings. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully.
The response from the Valdoran commander came quickly, filled with derision.
Human pretender, your claims mean nothing. We have come to claim this system for the Empire. Your pathetic fleet cannot stand against Valdoran might.
Marcus felt a cold smile cross his face as memories from previous royal incarnations flooded his consciousness. The Valdorans had made the same mistake countless aggressors had made throughout history. They had underestimated the power of the royal bloodline. Commander Kex, Marcus said quietly. Demonstrate the folly of their arrogance. With pleasure, Your Majesty. Through the throne's connection, Marcus felt Kex activate systems that had been theoretical when Prince Kalen disappeared. The dimensional anchors around the system began to harmonize, creating a field effect that fundamentally altered the nature of spacetime within their range. The first indication the Valdoran scouts had that something was wrong came when their weapons stopped functioning. Energy weapons required the interaction of exotic particles that suddenly found themselves unable to exist in local spacetime. Kinetic weapons discovered that momentum conservation had been locally suspended. Even their communication systems began to fail as the electromagnetic spectrum was selectively edited. What is happening to our ships? The Valdoran commander demanded, his voice crackling through increasingly unstable channels. You are experiencing the authority of the royal bloodline, Marcus replied calmly. Your weapons function only because reality permits them to do so. In royal space, that permission can be revoked. Through the tactical displays, Marcus watched as the 12 Valdoran scout ships found themselves completely defenseless, drifting in space with systems that had simply stopped working according to normal physics. But he wasn't finished with the demonstration.
Phase 2, he commanded.
The royal fleet began to materialize around the helpless scouts. Not through hyperspace jumps or any conventional faster-than-light travel, but by folding space itself to bring the ships into existence where they needed to be. One moment the scouts were alone at the system's edge, the next, they were surrounded by 50 vessels that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. The Valdoran ships tried to flee, but even their engines had been selectively disabled by the reality manipulation field.
They were trapped, witnesses to a demonstration of power that would soon be transmitted to their commanders.
Valdoran scouts, Marcus announced, you will be permitted to leave this system with a message for your empire. Tell them that the lost prince has awakened, and the old kingdom remembers what was done during the expansion wars.
Tell them that royal justice has returned to the galaxy. You're just going to let them go?
General Thora asked from her position at the tactical station. Marcus nodded, though his enhanced consciousness was already calculating the psychological impact of mercy combined with overwhelming power.
Fear of the unknown is more effective than fear of destruction. They need to carry word of what they've seen.
The dimensional anchors released their hold on normal physics around the scout ships, allowing their systems to function normally. The 12 vessels fled toward the system's edge as fast as their engines could carry them, transmitting panic reports to the main Valdoran fleet. But Marcus's attention was already shifting to a more complex problem. Through the Royal Consciousness Network, he was receiving reports from across the 17 kingdoms. The activation of sleeper fleets and reality anchors had not gone unnoticed by the galaxy's intelligence services. Emergency meetings were being called in dozens of governments as leaders tried to understand what the Royal Awakening actually meant for the balance of power. Your Majesty, Oracle Vex said, appearing beside the throne through a fold space portal, we're receiving communications from the Terran Federation.
Your home government wants to speak with you. Marcus felt his stomach tighten.
In all the chaos of claiming his royal heritage, he had almost forgotten that Earth was now part of the galactic community. His actions were about to have serious implications for the planet where he had grown up.
Put them through.
The holographic image of Admiral Sarah Rodriguez materialized in the command center. Marcus recognized her from embassy briefings. She was the head of Earth's Stellar Defense Force and one of the most respected military leaders in human space.
Marcus, she said, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion, what the hell is going on out there? We're getting reports of massive fleet movements and some kind of reality-altering weapons being deployed.
Admiral Rodriguez, Marcus replied carefully, the situation is complicated.
Complicated?
Her voice rose slightly. Half the galaxy is mobilizing for war, and, according to our intelligence sources, it's all because one of our diplomatic attaches claimed to be an alien prince.
Do you have any idea what this is doing to Earth's reputation?
Marcus could feel the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a physical force. His actions weren't just affecting the 17 kingdoms, they were potentially endangering the entire human race. Admiral, I understand your concerns, but I need you to know that I didn't choose this situation. The royal bloodline was awakened by genetic factors beyond my control.
Genetic factors? Admiral Rodriguez looked skeptical. Marcus, you're human. Your parents are human. Your grandparents were human going back generations.
That's what we all believed, Marcus replied.
But it appears that human history is more complex than we realized.
Through the throne's connection, he accessed genetic records that had been preserved in royal databases for millennia.
With a thought, he transmitted the data to Admiral Rodriguez's ship. These records show that Prince Kalen of Zephyria didn't die in the ancient wars as commonly believed.
He escaped to Earth and integrated into the developing human population. His descendants have been spreading across our planet for 50,000 years. Admiral Rodriguez studied the data streaming across her displays, her expression growing more troubled by the moment. According to this, approximately 12% of the human population carries dormant royal genetic markers. Which means, Marcus continued, that humanity isn't just another species that happened to develop space travel.
We're the lost tribe of the most powerful kingdom in galactic history. The implications hit Admiral Rodriguez like a physical blow.
Sweet merciful. Marcus, if this information becomes public knowledge, every major power in the galaxy will consider humanity a threat.
It's too late for secrecy, Marcus replied sadly. The Royal Awakening sends psychic signals across known space. Every telepathic species already knows what's happened. As if to emphasize his point, alerts began sounding throughout the command center. The main Valdoran fleet had arrived at the system's edge, and they had brought significantly more firepower than anyone had anticipated. 250 Valdoran dreadnoughts, Commander Kex reported.
Plus 300 heavy cruisers and countless support vessels.
They've also brought reality anchors of their own older designs, but potentially capable of countering our dimensional manipulation. Marcus felt his blood run cold. The Valdorans had been preparing for this confrontation for far longer than anyone had realized. They had spent centuries developing countermeasures to royal technology, waiting for the day when the bloodline would awaken. Admiral Rodriguez, Marcus said urgently, I need you to get word to Earth immediately. The human population needs to be prepared for what's coming.
What's coming? She demanded.
War, Marcus replied simply.
A war that will determine whether the galaxy falls under the dominion of empires that view other species as resources to be consumed, or whether the old kingdom can be restored to protect the innocent. The main Valdoran fleet began advancing into the system, their reality anchors creating fields of distorted spacetime that sparkled with dangerous energy. Behind them, long-range sensors detected the approach of the Keth biofleet, hundreds of ships that were less machines than living creatures, capable of adapting and evolving even in the middle of battle.
Your Majesty, General Thora reported, our sleeper fleets are fully activated. We have 312 ships ready for combat. But, against these numbers.
I know, Marcus replied, gripping the spear of Kalen tighter. The weapon's connection to royal technology was showing him tactical possibilities that would have been unthinkable to any conventional military strategist.
But, we're not fighting a conventional battle. He turned back to Admiral Rodriguez's image. Admiral, I'm about to do things that will fundamentally change the nature of warfare in this galaxy. Whatever happens in the next few hours, I need you to know that everything I do is to protect innocent life, including human life.
Marcus, tell Earth that the lost prince kept his promise, Marcus interrupted. Tell them that humanity's greatest protector has come home. He severed the communication link and turned to face the approaching storm. Through the throne's consciousness network, he could feel the hopes and fears of billions of beings across the 17 kingdoms.
They were looking to him for salvation, trusting in genetic programming that told them the royal bloodline would protect them.
All ships, Marcus commanded, his voice carrying to every vessel in the royal fleet, prepare to engage. Show the galaxy why the old kingdom was respected throughout the stars. The greatest space battle in 10,000 years was about to begin, and Marcus knew that its outcome would determine not just the fate of the 17 kingdoms, but the future of every free species in the galaxy. The battle began not with weapons fire, but with the fundamental rewriting of reality itself. Marcus stood at the center of the throne of command, the spear of Kalen blazing like a captured star in his hand, as dimensional anchors throughout the Zephyria system harmonized into a weapon that had no equal in known space.
Reality matrix stable, Commander Kex reported. We have full dimensional control within the system perimeter.
Through the throne's connection, Marcus could perceive every ship in the massive enemy fleet, 550 Valdoran vessels advancing in perfect formation, their own reality anchors creating counterfields that sparkled with dangerous energy. Behind them, the Keth biofleet moved like a living organism, their ships adapting their configurations even as they traveled.
Valdoran lead elements have entered the outer reality field, another officer announced.
They're attempting to establish counter-anchoring positions. Marcus closed his eyes and reached through the royal consciousness network, touching the minds of loyal subjects across 17 star systems. Through their collective will and the power of the awakened bloodline, he began to reshape spacetime itself. The effect was immediately visible on the tactical displays. Space around the approaching Valdoran fleet began to fold and twist, creating pockets of altered physics that turned their defensive formations into death traps. Ships that had been maintaining careful spacing suddenly found themselves occupying the same coordinates, their matter attempting to exist in impossible configurations. Veldoran casualties mounting, Kex reported with satisfaction. Estimate 40 vessels lost to dimensional collapse. But the enemy had not come unprepared. The surviving Veldoran dreadnoughts activated their own reality anchors, creating stable pockets of normal spacetime that allowed them to continue their advance. Their weapons, upgraded with technology stolen from ancient battlefields, began to function again as they carved out zones where royal power held no dominion. "They've been preparing for this for centuries," General Thora observed grimly. "Every piece of royal technology they've ever encountered has been studied and countermeasures developed." Marcus felt the strain of maintaining dimensional control against such determined opposition. The Valdorans had learned from 10,000 years of galactic history, preparing specifically for the day when the royal bloodline would awaken. Their counter-anchors were crude compared to royal technology, but they were effective enough to neutralize many of his advantages. "Status of our fleet?" he asked. "All royal vessels operational. The Axiom Guard formations are holding position in fold space, ready for your command." Through the spear's connection, Marcus could sense every ship in the royal fleet, 300 vessels that carried technologies the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. But, against superior numbers and prepared countermeasures, even royal engineering had limits. "Your Majesty," Oracle Vex said, materializing beside the throne through a fold portal, "I must remind you of the doctrine of last resort." Marcus felt a chill run through him. The doctrine of last resort was a strategy from the ancient royal archives, a final weapon that could turn any battle but, at a cost that had made previous kings reluctant to use it. "The consequences would be irreversible," he replied. "As would defeat," Vex pointed out. "If the Valdorans and Keth succeed here, they will hunt down every being carrying royal genetics. Humanity itself would become a target for extinction." The truth of her words hit Marcus with physical force. Through the throne's galactic awareness, he could sense Valdoran intelligence services already compiling lists of human colonies and settlements. They had identified the genetic connection and marked his entire species for elimination. "Incoming transmission from the Valdoran fleet," an officer announced. "Put it through." The holographic image of a Valdoran admiral materialized in the command center, a being whose silver skin had been enhanced with mechanical implants and whose eyes glowed with artificial intelligence. "Royal Pretender," the admiral began, "I am Fleet Admiral Zex of the Valdoran Empire. You have demonstrated impressive capabilities, but the outcome of this battle is inevitable. Surrender now, and your death will be swift." Marcus felt the cold fury of 10,000 years of royal memory flowing through his consciousness. "Admiral Zex," he replied, his voice carrying the authority of ancient kings, "you have invaded sovereign space and threatened innocent lives. You have one final opportunity to withdraw." Admiral Zex's mechanical laugh echoed through the communication link. "Your royal toys are impressive, but they cannot change simple mathematics. We outnumber you nearly 2-to-1, and our ships carry weapons specifically designed to counter your technology." "Mathematics," Marcus repeated thoughtfully. "An interesting concept. Tell me, Admiral, how many ships do you think I actually have?" Before Zex could respond, Marcus activated Protocol Omega. Throughout the Zephyria system, reality anchors began operating in perfect synchronization, creating fold space openings that defied every law of physics the galaxy understood. The effect was immediate and staggering. Where 300 royal ships had been positioned moments before, now there were 3,000. Each vessel had been duplicated through dimensional folding, creating perfect copies that existed in multiple probability states simultaneously. The royal fleet had just increased its numbers by an order of magnitude. Admiral Zex's confident expression vanished as his tactical displays showed the impossible. What are you?" "I am the heir to a kingdom that conquered space itself," Marcus replied. "You are about to learn why the ancient empire was feared across the galaxy." The battle erupted with fury that had not been seen since the original expansion wars. Royal ships, enhanced by dimensional multiplication, engaged Valdoran dreadnoughts with weapons that violated known physics. Energy beams bent around corners to strike targets that thought themselves safe behind cover. Kinetic rounds accelerated through fold space to impact with velocities that should have been impossible. But the Valdorans fought back with desperate efficiency. Their reality anchors created stable zones where royal technology couldn't function normally. Their weapons, designed specifically to counter dimensional manipulation, began taking a toll on the multiplied fleet.
"We're losing cohesion on the fold duplicates," Commander Kex reported. "Valdoran countermeasures are forcing them back into single probability states."
Marcus could feel the strain through every fiber of his being. Maintaining thousands of ships in multiple dimensional states while coordinating their attacks was pushing the limits of what even royal consciousness could achieve.
That's when the Keth biofleet arrived.
The living ships of the Keth coalition dropped out of hyperspace like a plague of locusts, their organic hulls already adapting to the exotic energies filling the battlefield.
Unlike the Valdorans, the Keth didn't rely on technology to counter royal power, they simply evolved around it. Keth bioships are showing immunity to dimensional folding effects, an officer reported. They're adapting in real time.
Marcus watched in fascination and horror as the bioships changed their fundamental structure, developing new organs that allowed them to exist stable in folded spacetime. Within minutes, they were not only immune to royal weapons but beginning to duplicate the effects themselves. "The Keth are learning our technology by observing it," General Thora warned.
"If they escape this battle, they'll be able to replicate everything they've seen."
Marcus felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The doctrine of last resort offered a way to win this battle decisively, but at a cost that would reshape the galaxy forever. Through the Royal Consciousness Network, he could sense the thoughts and feelings of billions of loyal subjects across 17 systems. They trusted him to protect them, even if it meant making choices no one should have to make. "All ships," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying to every vessel in the royal fleet, "prepare for dimensional cascade." The silence that followed was profound. Every officer in the command center understood what dimensional cascade meant: the complete collapse of normal spacetime within the target area, creating a zone where matter, energy, and time itself ceased to function according to known laws. "Your Majesty," Oracle Vex said quietly, "once initiated, the cascade cannot be stopped. Everything within a light-year radius will be affected." "Including our own ships," Marcus acknowledged.
"Including everything," Vex corrected. "The cascade will create a dead zone in spacetime that will persist for millennia.
Nothing will be able to exist there, no matter, no energy, no life of any kind."
Marcus looked at the tactical displays showing the massive enemy fleets that had come to destroy everything he had sworn to protect.
Nearly 1,000 ships carrying millions of beings who had chosen to serve empires built on conquest and oppression. Against them stood the remnants of the royal fleet and the hopes of countless innocents who deserved to live free from tyranny. "Dimensional cascade authorized," Marcus said quietly. The reality anchors throughout the system began to sing with harmonized energy as they prepared to tear apart the fundamental structure of spacetime itself. But even as the cascade began building toward critical mass, Marcus made one final decision that would define his reign.
"Open channels to all enemy vessels," he commanded. "Channels open, Your Majesty."
"Attention Valdoran and Keth fleets," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across space to nearly 1,000 enemy ships. "I am about to deploy a weapon that will destroy everything within this system, including my own forces. You have 30 seconds to withdraw beyond the dimensional perimeter."
"This is not a bluff."
The response was immediate chaos as enemy commanders realized they were facing someone willing to sacrifice everything to protect what he held dear. Valdoran ships began emergency jumps to hyperspace while Keth biovessels adapted new organs for rapid escape.
But not all of them made it.
The dimensional cascade erupted like a flower of pure destruction, unmaking reality itself in an expanding sphere that consumed everything in its path. Valdoran dreadnoughts that had seemed invincible simply ceased to exist as the fundamental forces holding their atoms together were dissolved. Keth bioships, despite their adaptability, found themselves trying to evolve beyond the need for matter itself. When the cascade finally stabilized, the Zephyria system had been transformed. Where once there had been a major star system, now there was something that couldn't quite be described in normal terms: a zone where space and time existed in harmony with royal will rather than natural law. The surviving enemy ships, those that had managed to escape beyond the cascade perimeter, fled toward the galaxy's edges carrying reports that would change interstellar politics forever. They had witnessed the return of royal power in its most terrible form, and their empires would think twice before challenging the awakened kingdom. Marcus slumped in the throne of command, feeling the weight of what he had accomplished and what it had cost. Through the Royal Consciousness Network, he could sense the celebration and relief of beings across 17 systems who now knew they were safe from conquest. But he could also feel the horror of those who understood that their protection had come at the price of their king's innocence. "Your Majesty," General Thora said softly, "incoming transmission from the Terran Federation."
Admiral Rodriguez's image appeared once again, but her expression had changed completely.
Where before there had been confusion and concern, now there was something approaching awe. "Marcus," she said quietly, "sensors across human space detected the dimensional cascade.
Our scientists say it should have been impossible."
"A lot of things should have been impossible," Marcus replied tiredly.
"But here we are."
The Valdoran and Keth fleets that escaped are already broadcasting warnings throughout the galaxy. "They're calling you the most dangerous being in known space." Marcus looked at the spear of Kalen in his hand, its golden light now subdued but never truly dimmed.
"Maybe they're right. What happens now?" Admiral Rodriguez asked.
Marcus stood from the throne, feeling the weight of royal responsibility settling permanently on his shoulders. Through the consciousness network, he could sense delegations from across the galaxy preparing to travel to Zephyria space. Some came seeking alliance, others demanding answers, and a few carrying threats that would need to be addressed.
"Now," Marcus said, "we rebuild the kingdom. We protect the innocent. And we make sure that what happened here today never needs to happen again."
As the communication ended, Marcus walked to the observation windows of the command center. Beyond the crystalline walls, the transformed space of the Zephyria system glowed with gentle golden light, a permanent reminder of the price of freedom and the responsibility of power. The lost prince had indeed returned, bringing with him the promise of protection for all who sought refuge under royal protection. But he had also brought the terrible reminder that some powers, once awakened, could never again be hidden.
The galaxy would never be the same.
And neither would Marcus Chen, the human who had become a king among the stars.